Commander Amina Roberts was a strong and disciplined woman. She had served in the city's military division for many years. People respected her because she was fair, brave, and always calm no matter the situation. She believed in rules, order, and patience. Her colleagues often said that Amina had the ability to stay steady even in the hardest times. That morning, the sun shone brightly and the city streets were full of people going about their daily work. Amina had finished her early exercises at the training center and was walking toward the city center to meet a few of her junior officers. She carried herself with confidence and pride, her uniform neat and her medals polished. She greeted people she met along the way, nodding politely and offering smiles. The city felt alive and she enjoyed the simple moments of peace before the day's responsibilities took over. As she walked, a police patrol car stopped nearby. Two officers stepped out quickly. One of them, a young man, looked nervous. The other, older and taller, seemed unsure of what to do. They approached Amina, calling her politely to stop. Amina stopped immediately. She raised her hand slightly in greeting and asked if she could help them understand something. The younger officer spoke first, asking for identification. Amina nodded and reached for her badge and ID card. She showed them clearly, holding it for both officers to see. She smiled politely and said, "I am Commander Amina Roberts of the city's military division. How can I assist you?" The officers exchanged a glance. The taller one looked slightly uncomfortable. He said something about a routine check, but his words seemed uncertain. Amina remained calm. She had faced many unexpected situations in her career, but she had never lost her composure. Her voice was steady, and her posture straight. People passing by started noticing the scene. Some stopped to watch quietly, sensing that something unusual was happening. Amina's calm confidence stood out among the small crowd gathering around. Suddenly, the taller officer made a surprising decision. He reached for his handcuffs. Amina blinked once, then quickly composed herself. She understood that panicking or resisting would only make the situation worse. "Officer, may I ask why handcuffs are necessary?" she asked politely. The officer hesitated. He did not have a clear answer. The young officer looked unsure, shifting his weight nervously. Amina's calm and respectful tone made them uneasy. People in the crowd whispered to each other, some recording the scene on their phones. Amina's eyes scanned the area, noticing the faces of curious onlookers. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that patience was the key to handling this situation. The taller officer moved closer, his hand on the handcuffs. Amina held her hands slightly forward, showing that she would cooperate without creating tension. "I assure you, officers, I am not resisting. I am willing to cooperate fully. Please allow me to explain my position," she said. Her words were firm but polite, carrying the authority of someone who had earned respect through years of service. The officers paused for a moment, caught between procedure and respect. They realized that they were dealing with someone who commanded respect naturally. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Amina remained composed. She adjusted her posture, standing tall, and spoke calmly to the crowd forming around her. "I request that this situation be handled professionally," she said. People nodded silently, impressed by her courage and dignity. Amina knew that how she reacted in this moment would influence the outcome. She focused on staying calm, speaking clearly, and showing respect to the officers despite the misunderstanding. Her training had prepared her for high-pressure situations, and she relied on it fully. The crowd continued to grow. Amina noticed children watching curiously from a distance and adults whispering in concern. She smiled slightly, trying to ease the tension. "There is no need for worry. Everything can be resolved peacefully," she said. Her calm and composed words created a sense of order amidst the confusion. The officers felt the weight of the situation and realized that rushing or acting out of fear would not serve anyone well. Amina's presence reminded them of discipline, respect, and the importance of careful decision-making. Amina walked with the officers toward the patrol car. Her head was held high, her expression steady. She continued to speak in calm, respectful tones, explaining her identity and the importance of professional behavior. People in the crowd recorded and whispered, sensing that they were witnessing a remarkable display of courage and discipline. The situation, though tense, remained peaceful because Amina refused to show anger or fear. She had learned that respect and patience could often change outcomes where force could not. Commander Amina Roberts felt the cool metal of the handcuffs around her wrists. She walked calmly with the officers toward the patrol car. Her steps were steady, her posture straight, and her eyes focused. Even though the situation was unexpected, she did not show fear or anger. The crowd around them whispered and recorded the scene. Some people clearly surprised that a high-ranking officer was being handcuffed. Amina remained polite and composed, knowing that her reaction could influence how this moment would unfold. The younger officer tried to speak to her quietly, but his words stumbled. "Ma'am, this is just a routine check. We are following the instructions," he said nervously. Amina nodded and responded, "I understand the need for procedure, but it is important to act with care. A misunderstanding should not become a problem if we handle it calmly." Her tone was firm yet respectful. The older officer glanced at her, feeling the weight of her authority even though he had been the one to put her in handcuffs. His confidence faltered and he looked uncertain. As they reached the patrol car, Amina noticed the expressions of the people around her. Some were shaking their heads, clearly puzzled by what they were seeing. Others whispered words of support. She thought about how important it was to remain calm and collected. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, could help the officers realize the seriousness of their actions without escalating the situation. Amina raised her head slightly and spoke to the crowd in a clear voice. "Please remain calm. This situation will be resolved peacefully," she said. Her calm and respectful presence made the people around her quiet and attentive. The officers guided her to the side of the patrol car. Amina lifted her hands slightly as she turned to face them. "Officers, I am willing to cooperate fully. Please ensure that this situation is handled professionally," she said. Her words were polite, but they carried authority. The older officer shifted uncomfortably. He felt the weight of responsibility and began to understand that he had acted too quickly. The younger officer avoided eye contact, realizing that their decision to handcuff a commander had created tension they were not prepared to handle. Amina noticed that the crowd continued to grow. Some people were filming on their phones while others whispered quietly to each other. Children peeked from behind adults, curious about the unusual scene. Amina smiled slightly to ease the tension, her expression calm and gentle. "There is no need for concern," she said. "If we act with respect and patience, everything will be resolved." Her words were sincere, and they carried the quiet strength of someone used to high-pressure situations. The officers listened, feeling the unusual calm in her voice, and began to reconsider how they were handling the situation. The older officer spoke again, his voice lower and hesitant. "Ma'am, we are just following our orders. We did not expect this," he said, unsure how to continue. Amina nodded slightly, her eyes kind but firm. "I understand that rules are important," she said. "But it is equally important to act with respect and care. We can solve this without conflict if we remain patient and professional." Her words seemed to reach him. He swallowed nervously, realizing that he had not thought about how his actions would appear to others, especially to someone trained in leadership and discipline. As they stood by the patrol car, Amina kept her focus on remaining calm. She knew that any sign of anger or frustration could make the officers defensive and the crowd uneasy. Her presence reminded everyone of the importance of patience, respect, and self-control. She noticed a few bystanders nodding quietly, impressed by how composed she remained. Amina thought about how her actions could set an example for others, showing that leadership was not just about authority, but about how one handles difficult moments with grace and professionalism. Suddenly, the older officer glanced at the handcuffs around her wrists. He hesitated, feeling uncertain about whether he had done the right thing. The younger officer seemed confused and uncomfortable. Amina saw the moment of doubt in their eyes and decided to speak with calm authority. "Officers, I ask that you reconsider this action. My cooperation is complete, but respect and careful judgment are necessary at all times," she said. Her voice was steady, clear, and commanding yet kind. The crowd around them watched closely. Sensing that the moment was shifting from tension to reflection, Amina remained composed, ready for whatever would come next. She knew that patience, respect, and professionalism could turn even the most difficult situations into lessons of understanding and leadership. Her calm presence was like a light in the uncertain moment, showing that authority and discipline were most powerful when combined with respect. Commander Amina Roberts stood calmly by the patrol car. Her hands were still in handcuffs, but she did not show fear or frustration. The crowd around her had grown larger. People stopped their work, paused on sidewalks, and watched closely. Some quietly filmed on their phones, while others whispered in confusion. Children peeked from behind adults, curious about what was happening. Amina noticed the attention and knew that how she acted would influence not only the officers but everyone watching. The taller officer looked uneasy. He shifted from one foot to the other, glancing at the crowd. He had expected a simple situation, a quick check, but now he felt the weight of his decision. He saw the calmness in Amina's face and realized she was not like other people they had stopped before. She carried authority naturally. Her uniform was neat, her medal shining, and her posture perfect. The calm in her eyes made him pause. He was suddenly aware that this was no ordinary situation. The crowd was watching, and their whispers made the tension heavier. Amina spoke softly but clearly, addressing the officers. "I ask you to handle this situation professionally. I am willing to cooperate, but it is important to act with care. Respect and patience are necessary for everyone involved." Her voice was firm yet calm. The older officer looked at her and felt a strange mix of respect and embarrassment. He realized that he had acted too quickly. He had made a mistake, and now he needed to find a way to correct it without causing more trouble. The younger officer fidgeted nervously. He looked at the handcuffs and then at the crowd. People were quietly observing, some whispering to each other. A few were shaking their heads, clearly surprised that a high-ranking officer was being treated this way. Amina noticed the tension and decided to maintain her calm. She spoke again, her voice steady. "Every moment is a chance to act with professionalism. Acting out of fear or rush can create problems. Let us solve this situation with patience and respect." Her words were simple, but they carried the quiet power of authority. Some bystanders started to speak quietly to each other. "She is so calm even in handcuffs," one said. "It is unusual to see someone handle this situation with such patience," another added. The crowd began to sense that Amina's actions were teaching a lesson. People were learning about dignity, respect, and leadership just by watching her. The officers could feel the weight of the crowd's attention, and it made them even more aware that their decision might be wrong. Amina noticed the young officer's hesitation. She decided to help him understand without creating conflict. "Officer," she said, "I know you are following orders and I respect your duty. But leadership also requires thinking carefully about every action. We can handle this situation with calm and professionalism. There is no need to act in haste." Her words were kind but firm. The officer looked at her, seeing not anger, not resistance, but only calm authority. It made him rethink what he was doing. The older officer finally spoke, his voice low and hesitant. "Commander Roberts, we did not mean any harm. We just acted quickly," he said. Amina nodded slightly. "I understand that. Quick decisions are part of your work. But even in quick decisions, respect and understanding matter. We can correct mistakes without causing more problems," she replied. Her calm explanation made him realize that he had overstepped his authority. He felt a sense of relief that she was not angry, only guiding the situation toward the right outcome. The crowd continued to grow. More people stopped to watch. Amina's calm and steady presence became the center of attention. She kept her head high and her expression composed. She knew that she was setting an example not only for the officers but also for the people around her. Leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about handling challenges with grace and patience. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, reinforced that lesson. Amina noticed the moment was changing. The officers were beginning to doubt their actions. The young officer looked down unsure while the older officer shifted uneasily. The situation that had started with tension and misunderstanding was slowly moving toward reflection and learning. Amina remained calm, ready to guide them further. She knew that patience, respect, and professionalism were more powerful than anger or force. The crowd watched quietly. Sensing that something important was unfolding before their eyes, Amina took a small step forward, keeping her posture straight and her voice steady. This moment is a reminder that authority comes with responsibility. "Acting with patience and respect is the true measure of leadership," she said. Her words carried weight. The officers looked at each other, realizing that they needed to correct their mistake. The tension in the air began to change, replaced with understanding and reflection. Amina had turned an unexpected and difficult situation into an opportunity for learning and respect. Commander Amina Roberts stood calmly beside the patrol car. Her hands were still in handcuffs, but she did not show fear or frustration. She noticed the officer's hesitation. The older officer looked uneasy and unsure of what to do next. He shifted his weight from one foot to another, glancing at the growing crowd. The younger officer fidgeted nervously, avoiding eye contact. Both were aware that the situation had escalated beyond what they expected. The calm authority in Amina's presence made them feel that they had made a serious mistake. Amina decided to speak again. Her voice was calm and steady. "Officers, I am willing to cooperate fully. I understand your duty and I respect your role. But it is important to act with care and professionalism at all times. A situation like this can be resolved peacefully if we all remain calm and respectful," she said. Her words were clear and polite, but they carried a quiet strength that made the officers pause. They could feel the weight of her experience and authority. The crowd sensed that she was guiding the moment toward understanding, rather than conflict. The taller officer glanced at the handcuffs and then at the crowd. People were watching quietly, some filming on their phones, some whispering. A few shook their heads in surprise. Amina noticed their attention but did not let it distract her. She focused on the officers, maintaining a calm and composed presence. "Leadership is not just about giving orders," she continued. "It is about making thoughtful decisions even under pressure. Respect and patience are as important as following rules. Acting too quickly without understanding can create problems for everyone involved." Her words were simple, but their meaning was strong and clear. The older officer finally spoke, his voice low and hesitant. "Commander Roberts, we did not intend to cause any trouble. We acted quickly, and now I see that it may not have been the right decision," he said. Amina nodded slightly. "I understand your intentions," she replied. "Quick decisions are sometimes necessary. But even in quick decisions, thinking carefully and showing respect matters. Mistakes can be corrected without making the situation worse." Her calm explanation seemed to reach him. He realized that he needed to take responsibility for his actions. The younger officer looked at Amina with confusion and concern. He had never handled a situation like this before. Amina spoke gently but firmly to him. "Officer, I know you are following instructions. You are doing your best, but it is important to remain aware of how your actions affect others. Respect and patience are always part of true leadership. You can learn from this moment and act better in the future." Her words were kind, yet they carried authority. The officer nodded slowly, feeling a mix of relief and understanding. He realized that the situation could still be resolved peacefully. Amina noticed the crowd watching closely. People were quietly impressed by how she handled herself. She raised her head slightly and spoke in a calm voice. "This moment shows that respect and discipline are stronger than force or fear. Every action we take should be measured and careful. We all have a chance to learn and grow from challenging situations." Her words were simple, but they made a strong impression. The officers could feel the weight of the crowd's attention, and it encouraged them to act responsibly. The older officer began to remove the handcuffs slowly. He looked at Amina and said, "Commander, I apologize for the mistake. It was not our intention to disrespect you or create confusion." Amina smiled slightly, her expression calm and polite. "Thank you," she said. "Acknowledging mistakes and correcting them is a sign of true professionalism. Everyone can learn from moments like this." The young officer nodded, feeling reassured and more confident in handling similar situations in the future. Amina stepped back slightly, keeping her posture straight and her voice steady. Leadership and respect go together. Every action, every decision can teach a lesson. This moment reminds us to act thoughtfully and with care. The crowd watched quietly, sensing that a difficult moment had been transformed into an example of patience, professionalism, and understanding. People began to whisper in admiration, talking about how calmly and wisely Amina had handled the situation. As the handcuffs were removed completely, Amina remained composed. She kept her focus on the officers and the lesson the moment had taught. The older officer looked relieved, and the younger officer seemed more confident. The tension that had filled the air was slowly fading, replaced by a sense of understanding and respect. Amina knew that her calm demeanor and clear words had made the difference. She had turned a potentially tense situation. Commander Amina Roberts stood tall, her wrists free from the handcuffs. The crowd around her had grown larger and more attentive. People whispered quietly to each other, pointing at the commander and discussing the unusual scene. Some had been recording the incident on their phones while others simply watched, curious and amazed. Amina noticed the eyes of the crowd, but she remained calm and composed. She understood that her actions could influence not only the officers, but everyone witnessing the event. The officers looked at her with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. They had realized their mistake, and now they were unsure how to act next. Amina's calm presence reminded them of the importance of professionalism and discipline. She decided it was time to make the moment meaningful, not just for herself but for everyone involved. Slowly, she raised her right hand in a precise military salute. Her movements were measured, disciplined, and respectful. The salute carried the weight of her experience, authority, and the pride she had earned over years of service. The crowd grew silent. The simple gesture of a military salute had an unexpected effect. It was a symbol of discipline, respect, and order. People noticed the power in her stance and the clarity in her expression. Even the officers who had handcuffed her felt a sense of realization and humility. The salute reminded them of the responsibilities of leadership and the importance of acting with care. For a moment, the city's street felt still, as if everyone was holding their breath to absorb the significance of the gesture. Amina kept her posture straight, her eyes focused on the older officer. She spoke in a calm and steady voice. Leadership is shown through actions, not only words. Respect, patience, and discipline guide every decision. This salute represents the values that should be remembered in every moment of duty. Her words were simple, yet they carried strength. The older officer nodded slowly, understanding the lesson she was conveying. The younger officer, too, looked at her with new understanding. He realized that true authority came not from force, but from wisdom and calm confidence. The people in the crowd began to whisper softly, commenting on Amina's presence and composure. "She is so calm and powerful," one said quietly. "That salute is more than a gesture. It is a lesson for everyone," another whispered. Children who had been watching from a distance seemed inspired by the confidence and dignity in her actions. Adults in the crowd felt a sense of respect and admiration. The simple act of a salute had transformed the energy of the scene. Tension and confusion were replaced with awareness, understanding, and reflection. The older officer stepped forward, his voice respectful. "Commander Roberts, I understand now. We acted without proper consideration. Your calm and discipline have reminded us of the importance of patience and careful judgment," he said. Amina nodded slightly, maintaining her salute until it was complete. "Acknowledging mistakes and learning from them shows true professionalism," she said. "Every moment is an opportunity to act with respect and integrity. Leadership requires awareness, patience, and respect for others in all circumstances." Her words emphasized the importance of responsibility and thoughtful action. The younger officer looked at Amina and spoke softly. "Thank you, Commander. I see now that discipline and respect matter as much as following instructions. I will remember this moment and act more carefully in the future." Amina gave a small, polite nod. "That is the right lesson," she replied. "Every challenge teaches us something." Remaining calm, acting with respect, and making thoughtful decisions show the strength of true leadership. Her words were clear and steady, inspiring confidence and reflection in those around her. Amina lowered her hand from the salute but kept her posture straight. The crowd began to relax, realizing that the tension had passed. People whispered in admiration, commenting on the way she had handled the situation with dignity and authority. The officers stood quietly, reflecting on what they had learned. Amina's calm presence, her professional approach, and her simple gesture had transformed a tense and confusing moment into a lesson in leadership and respect. She stepped slightly forward, addressing the officers and the crowd together. "Every action we take, every decision we make carries meaning. Respect, patience, and professionalism guide us to make the right choices. This moment is a reminder that authority and discipline are most powerful when combined with understanding and respect for others." The crowd listened quietly, absorbing the message. The officers nodded in agreement, aware that they had learned an important lesson about responsibility, respect, and true leadership. Commander Amina Roberts lowered her hand from the salute, but kept her posture firm and confident. The crowd around her was quiet, watching carefully. People whispered softly to each other, impressed by the way she had handled the situation. Children who had been observing from a distance seemed fascinated by her calm authority. Adults looked at each other, nodding in appreciation. Even the officers who had handcuffed her felt the weight of the moment and realized how their actions had appeared. Amina's presence and her disciplined gesture had reminded everyone that patience, respect, and professionalism were more powerful than force. The older officer finally took a deep breath and spoke clearly. "Commander Roberts, we realize now that our actions were not correct. We acted too quickly and did not consider the situation fully. We apologize for handcuffing you without proper reason." Amina listened quietly, her expression calm but firm. "Acknowledging the mistake and taking responsibility is the right step," she replied. "Leadership is not only about making decisions but also about learning from them. Respect and patience guide the right decisions at all times." Her words were gentle but carried authority. The crowd seemed to understand that they were witnessing a lesson in responsibility and professionalism. The younger officer looked nervous but determined. "Commander, I am sorry for my part in this. I understand now that careful consideration and respect are important. I will be more mindful in the future," he said. Amina nodded, her eyes calm. "That is the lesson to remember," she said. "Every moment offers an opportunity to act with integrity and respect. True leadership shows in how we respond to challenges and mistakes. Patience and discipline are the foundation of any professional action." Her words were clear and simple, but they carried meaning for everyone listening. Amina turned slightly toward the crowd, addressing them softly. "This incident reminds us that respect and professionalism should guide all our actions. Mistakes can be corrected if we respond with calmness and understanding. Leadership is about influence, integrity, and careful decisions, not only authority or rules." People in the crowd nodded quietly, some whispering in agreement. Many had witnessed situations before where tension escalated because of impatience or misunderstanding. Seeing Amina handle the situation with dignity made them reflect on their own actions and attitudes. The officers looked at each other, feeling a sense of responsibility. The older officer nodded toward the younger one. "We will follow proper procedures and act with care in the future," he said. The younger officer agreed, visibly relieved that the commander was not angry. Amina's calm approach had transformed a tense and confusing situation into an opportunity for learning. The officers understood that respect, patience, and clear communication were more effective than fear or haste. Amina spoke again, addressing both the officers and the crowd. "Every action carries consequences. Acting with care and respect ensures that authority is meaningful and positive. Today is a reminder that leadership is not only about rules but about guiding others through example, patience, and understanding." Her calm presence seemed to inspire the officers to feel more confident and responsible. They realized that their training and authority were only effective if combined with respect and professional behavior. The crowd began to move slightly, sensing that the situation was resolved. People continued to whisper softly, commenting on Amina's discipline and composure. They noticed how she had remained calm even in handcuffs, and how a simple salute had created a moment of reflection and learning. Children looked up to her as a role model, seeing courage and integrity in her actions. Adults nodded to each other, quietly impressed by the way a tense situation had turned into a lesson for everyone. The older officer stepped forward again, this time with a respectful tone. "Commander Roberts, we will report this incident accurately and ensure that proper procedures are followed in the future. Your calm and professional handling of the situation has reminded us of the importance of leadership and responsibility," he said. Amina smiled slightly and replied, "That is the right step. Leadership is shown through actions, patience, and the ability to handle challenges with respect. Today is an example of how professionalism can guide every situation to a positive outcome." The tension that had filled the street earlier was gone. The officers had taken responsibility, and the crowd felt inspired by the commander's calm and disciplined approach. Amina had turned a difficult moment into a lesson of respect, integrity, and leadership. She knew that her actions had made a difference, not only for the officers but for the people who had witnessed the event. Her presence had reminded everyone that true authority was always guided by patience, professionalism, and respect. After the officers had acknowledged their mistake, Commander Amina Roberts remained calm and composed. The crowd had quieted, but many people continued to watch closely. Their whispers were softer now, filled with respect and admiration rather than confusion. Children who had been peeking from behind adults seemed inspired by the way Amina had handled the situation. Adults exchanged glances, nodding at each other, clearly impressed by her patience, discipline, and professionalism. Amina noticed the effect her actions had on the people around her. She understood that leadership was not just about giving orders, it was about teaching by example. The older officer turned to the younger one, quietly speaking with him about what had happened. "We need to make sure we follow proper procedures in the future and think before we act," he said. The younger officer nodded, his expression showing a mixture of relief and understanding. Amina stepped slightly closer, addressing them both with calm authority. "Remember that your actions influence not only the immediate situation, but also the people who observe them. Leadership and respect must guide every choice," she said. Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of experience and professionalism. The officers listened carefully, realizing the truth in what she was saying. The crowd continued to watch, many nodding quietly. Some whispered among themselves about how unusual it was to see someone handle a tense moment with such composure. A few people spoke about the power of calmness and respect, noting how Amina had transformed a situation that could have escalated into conflict into a lesson of understanding and leadership. Her calm demeanor and disciplined behavior had clearly made an impression, and the officers themselves seemed to feel the influence of her example. Amina turned her attention back to the officers. "Acknowledging mistakes is important, but so is learning from them. Every situation is an opportunity to improve, to act with patience, and to guide others with respect," she said. The older officer nodded, clearly reflecting on her words. "Yes, Commander. We will remember this and act more carefully in the future," he said. The younger officer also agreed, a small smile appearing on his face. He seemed relieved that the situation was ending peacefully and proud that he could learn from it. Amina nodded slightly, satisfied that her approach had encouraged growth rather than fear. She looked around at the crowd again. People were still watching quietly, clearly impressed by the display of calm leadership. Amina spoke softly to them. "Every action we take matters. Even small gestures can teach lessons. Acting with respect and patience shows strength, not weakness. Leadership is about showing the right way through example and professionalism." Her words were simple but meaningful. The crowd absorbed her message, some smiling and nodding. Children seemed to understand a lesson about courage and calmness, while adults reflected on how to handle challenging situations in their own lives. The officers began to relax, realizing that the situation had been resolved. They stood attentively, acknowledging that they had learned an important lesson about professionalism, patience, and respect. Amina smiled slightly at them, maintaining her calm presence. She knew that their understanding was genuine. This moment would influence how they approached their duties in the future. Her actions had turned a tense incident into a learning experience, not only for the officers but for the people who had witnessed it. The crowd started to disperse slowly, still talking quietly among themselves. Some people had recorded the event on their phones, intending to share it as an example of calm leadership and discipline. Others were discussing how respect, patience, and professionalism could transform difficult moments into opportunities for growth. Amina remained composed, observing the people around her. She felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she had handled the situation with dignity and had reminded everyone of the importance of thoughtful actions and calm authority. Before leaving, Amina addressed the officers one last time. "Lead with respect, act with patience, and guide others by example. These are the true measures of leadership," she said. The officers nodded respectfully, understanding the message fully. The crowd had begun to leave, but the impression of the moment remained. Amina walked away with her head held high, proud of how she had handled the challenge. She knew that the lesson would stay with the officers and the people who had witnessed her calm and disciplined leadership. Commander Amina Roberts walked away from the patrol car, her head held high, feeling calm and proud. The crowd was slowly dispersing, but many people were still talking quietly about what they had witnessed. Children who had watched from behind adults seemed inspired by her composure and confidence. Adults exchanged nods and whispered about how impressive it was to see someone handle a difficult situation with such patience and professionalism. Amina knew that her actions had created a lasting impression. She had turned a tense and confusing moment into a lesson of leadership and respect. The officers who had handcuffed her were still nearby, talking quietly among themselves. They looked thoughtful and serious. The older officer approached her carefully. "Commander Roberts, we are grateful for your patience and understanding. Your calm and professional behavior has reminded us of the importance of careful judgment and respect in our duties," he said. Amina smiled politely, her expression calm. "Thank you for acknowledging that. Every action carries meaning. It is how we respond to challenges and mistakes that shows our true character," she replied. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of her experience and wisdom. The younger officer stepped forward next. His eyes reflected a mixture of relief and respect. "Commander, I have learned a lot from today. I understand now that patience and respect are as important as following orders. I will carry this lesson with me in the future," he said. Amina nodded slightly. "That is the right approach. Leadership and professionalism are shown not only through rules but also through understanding and thoughtful decisions. Mistakes can be opportunities to learn and grow," she explained. The officers listened carefully, clearly inspired by her calm guidance as Amina walked toward the street. The crowd continued to watch quietly. People whispered about how impressive it was to see someone handle such a situation without anger or frustration. Children seemed fascinated by her calm authority, and adults reflected on the lesson she had taught. Amina understood that her behavior had influenced not only the officers but also the community. Her calm and professional actions had shown that challenges could be handled with dignity and respect. She had turned a moment of misunderstanding into an example of true leadership. A few people approached her politely, expressing their admiration. "Commander Roberts, you handled that so calmly. It is inspiring to see how you stayed composed under pressure," one said. Amina smiled gently. "Thank you. Staying calm and acting with respect can turn difficult situations into lessons for everyone involved," she replied. People nodded quietly, clearly absorbing her words. Her presence had taught them about courage, patience, and the importance of thoughtful action. The officers prepared to return to their duties. They moved with a sense of responsibility, aware that they had been reminded of the values of leadership and professionalism. Amina watched them for a moment, satisfied that the lesson had been understood. She knew that this experience would guide their future decisions and interactions. Her calm and disciplined response had created an opportunity for learning and growth. The city streets, which had been filled with tension just moments ago, now felt peaceful and respectful. Amina continued walking, reflecting on the events of the day. She knew that leadership was not measured only by authority, but by how one handled challenges and guided others. The salute she had given had been more than a gesture. It had been a symbol of discipline, respect, and professionalism. The crowd's reaction, the officer's reflection, and the quiet admiration of those around her reminded her that patience and dignity were powerful tools in every situation. As she moved through the city streets, people quietly watched and talked about the lessons they had learned. Amina felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her actions had inspired others. Children seemed to understand the value of courage and calmness, while adults reflected on how to approach challenges thoughtfully. The officers had learned that true authority came with responsibility, careful judgment, and respect for others. The city had witnessed a display of leadership that would be remembered for a long time. Commander Amina Roberts arrived at her office, her mind calm and focused. She knew that the events of the day had not only tested her patience, but had also shown the power of professionalism and respect. Her actions had reminded everyone present that leadership was about guiding others through example, integrity, and thoughtful decisions. She smiled slightly, feeling proud that she had turned a difficult situation into a lesson of courage, respect, and responsibility. The day had ended, but the impact of her calm and disciplined approach would last far beyond.